If you want to be able to do things like this with the assault rifles in Fortnite Battle Royale, make sure you watch the entire video and practice some of the things that I talk about, and you too can hit like clips like this with the assault rifles. A lot of people think the assault rifles in Fortnite Battle Royale are random, and there is a sense of randomness to it with spread and bloom, but I'm going to talk about spread and bloom. We're going to get into that first. Then we're going to talk about ways to control spread and bloom, minimize how much that randomness matters in your actual gunfights. And then we're going to talk about some tips, like some things you could take advantage of in the game, especially if you're a controller player, to have very consistent aim and very consistent aim at long range with the assault rifles. A lot of people complain about bloom and blame bloom for them losing gunfights. Essentially, bloom is when your crosshair expands as you fire the weapon. So if you look at the dashes, the 4 dashes that your reticle make up, if you was to make a circle out of the outer edge of each of those dashes, your bullet can go anywhere within that circle. So the wider the circle is, the more randomness there is to your shots. The smaller the circle is, the less randomness there is to your shots. And whether or not bloom will matter will largely depend on how far away the opponent is from you. Because if they're closer up to you, they're obviously going to be larger, and you're going to be able to fit more of that large reticle on them. But if they're very far away, they're going to appear like smaller. So the large reticle is going to be quite detrimental, and there might only be like 10 to 20% of the reticle that actually has the opponent on it. So you're only going to hit 10% or 20% of your shots, since the bullet can go anywhere within that circle. So you just want to maximize how much of your opponent is actually in your reticle. And so when you the things that increase bloom and spread are shooting your weapon, moving, jumping, things like that. So if you're shooting your weapon, your crosshair expands over time. If you're moving, your crosshair expands over time. If you jump, your crosshair expands like pretty drastically. So the larger the crosshair is, the more inaccurate your weapon is going to be. So you want to keep your reticle as small as possible, depending on the fight. Like I said, if your opponent is very up close, you're going to want a full auto. If they're like maybe medium range, you're going to want to burst or tap fire, maybe even full auto if they're really weak. Really depends on the situation. But essentially just shoot your weapon in such a way that keeps as much of your opponent in the crosshair as possible. You want your opponent to take up a large percentage of that reticle. That way you have a large percentage to hit your shots. So things like standing still, crouching, shooting your weapon in a controlled manner will allow bloom to not get out of hand. So if you like burst and then allow like a brief time period in between your burst, or tap and then allow like a brief time period in between your taps, your crosshair is going to shrink again, and then your weapon is going to be more accurate because of that. And I'm not saying you need to crouch and play like a statue all the time. It really depends on the encounter, like I said. If someone is very far away and they don't see you, or even medium range or somewhat close and they don't see you, maybe crouch and stand still, and then like, even if they're close, like full auto on them or burst on them or tap on them, depending on range. And then once the fight actually starts, that's when you're going to want to do things like strafe. Strafing is very important. I'm not saying you shouldn't ever strafe. I'm just saying, like, especially when the opponent isn't paying attention to you, you should take advantage of that to as much as you possibly can. So think about how far away your opponent is, and then just gauge how you need to fire the weapon. Like I said, if they're somewhat close, you can full auto it. If they're medium range, you're probably going to want to burst it or tap fire. I actually tap fire a lot personally. That not everybody needs to do that. I don't really burst. I usually either full auto or tap. Those are like the two kind of modes I exist in. But it really depends on how large or how far away the opponent is, because their range from you is going to affect how large they appear to you. The final thing I want to talk about in this video is abusing aim assist, especially at longer ranges. This is going to lead to like a massive increase in how consistently you are able to hit your shots. And a lot of players do not understand this at all. So if you're a controller player and you have aim assist on, if your reticle is already very, very, very close to the opponent, and then you unaim down sights and re-aim down sights again, it'll lock onto them for like a split second. You need to shoot in that time. If it's not going to stay on them forever. Like you have like a very, very, very short window where the reticle will actually snap onto the opponent, and then you shoot. So you aim down sights. This is if somebody is very far away. If they're somewhat medium range, you don't necessarily need to be as careful with it. But if they're very far away, what you have to do is aim down sights near the opponent, near where you want it to lock in. If you like aim down sights just like very close to their head, and then unaim down sights and re-aim down sights and shoot like right away just as the dashes connect and you hit first shot accuracy, then you'll pretty much hit headshots every single time. Like I said, you already have to have your reticle very close to the opponent, and there's a very short window in which you have to actually shoot, because it doesn't track them. It just locks onto them in that instant, and you have to shoot in that instant. I don't think locking on would be the right term. It's more like snaps onto them, but you get what I'm saying. You have a very short window to execute your shot, and if you don't time it right, or if you shoot too early or too late, you're not going to actually get benefit from that, like snapping onto the opponent. You still might hit your shot, but it's not going to like be as perfect. So you have to get good timing with when to shoot. This is just going to be coming down to practice. And once you practice it, you're going to be very, very good. Like I said, you just need to practice it and have it be something that occurs naturally in your head. I used to not do this. I would just be like, I don't need to take advantage of that. I already have very good aim and I can already track opponents fine. But there was a time where I wasn't like playing well, and then I had like a tournament coming up that I had to play in with one of my friends. Or I didn't have to play in, but I'd agreed to play with it in one of my friends. And I was playing really badly, and my aim was actually quite bad, even though it usually wasn't. So I started practicing this and taking advantage of this just so I would be consistent, regardless as if I was actually playing well. Because once you get good timing with this, your aim will pretty much always be good, regardless of just whatever is going on. So I definitely encourage you to practice this. Like I said, it's you aim close to them, you unaim and then re-aim and then shoot at like the perfect time. I see some people like full autoing and then just untapping and retapping left trigger. That's not really how it works. Like you could do that at close-ish range or maybe medium-ish range, and it would maybe work just because like the opponent is larger and the crosshair, like we were talking about, they appear to be larger, so more of the reticle is on them. But if you're doing that at very long range, you aren't really helping yourself that much. If you're very long range, this is what I'm talking about, and getting consistency in very long range shots, put your reticle near the opponent's head, unaim and then re-aim and then shoot at like the perfect time, get good timing with that, and you will hit headshots consistently like you saw in that opening clip. That is going to be it for this video. If you all found it helpful or enjoyed it for some reason, please do remember to hit that like button and subscribe. I should live stream Fortnite every single day, and you can see me doing things like this with the assault rifle every single day. That is like by far my best weapon. And yeah, like leave a comment below if you thought this helped you or if you need more clarification on anything. I'll see you guys another time. Thanks for watching. Best to do it with first shot accuracy, but you can kind of do it a bit faster if you need to. But I don't really feel like explaining that right now. It just basically depends on the size of your reticle and how far you are from the opponent. Because even if I tap like 2 or 3 shots right now, like it's still like decent size to likely hit that guy.